Welcome to today's Fossil in Focus. We have a fantastic Mymoorapelta maysi, which is an ankylosaur from Colorado. So this fossil was found in the Morrison Formation, which puts it at being a late Jurassic dinosaur that was alive around 149 million years ago. Now this is probably one of my most favorite dinosaur fossils to talk about. It's just so cool to look at. But anyway, you might be wondering why I think this dinosaur is so amazingly cool and exactly what type of dinosaur is it. So let's take a quick look based on what the fossil evidence tells us. So again, when we start thinking about how we classify dinosaurs, it's based on the characters that we see. So when we look at this dinosaur, we know that it's an ornithischian, and that's because down here at the front of its jaw, it has a single bone, it's scoop-shaped, and it's down here on the lower jaw. This is called the predentary. So this is one of the features that helps us identify it as an ornithischian. The next thing we can look at, actually still in the jaws. So if we look closely, we can see that it has teeth right here. These, when we look at the whole jawbone, they're set in. So this is a dinosaur that had cheeks, and the cheeks we can see them there because of this inset tooth row. So this helps us identify this dinosaur as a Genisaurian. And then further, when we start to look on its back, we can see that it has these big bony plates on its back. These are called osteoderms. So that puts it into the thyreophorans, the shield bearers. So this had parallel rows of bones embedded in its skin running all the way down its back. And we can see one set here, and there's another set on the back side where I am. And then ultimately, when we start to look, the fact that it has horns on its skull, and these plates kind of run parallel down the back, we know that this is an ankylosauria. So that's really how we classify this dinosaur. Now you might be wondering, what was life like for Mymoorapelta when it was alive? We can start just to figure out what it did. So this is an herbivore, just based on this structure and looking at this teeth. You might be wondering, how much chewing did this dinosaur do? It has really cool triangular teeth if we take a quick look at them. So they're shaped like little triangles, and they have little tiny teeth on top of the edges. And this scoop shape, this front face, it would go and it would snip vegetation off the front. And these teeth aren't really great for chewing because they are pointy surfaces. So they would be useful for taking a bite and sort of shredding material. But ultimately, even though there is some wear on the teeth, most of the digestion was happening down in the very extensive gut cavity of this dinosaur. So they're really wide, they had a big extensive gut, and so digestion would be aided by fermentation inside of this really long digestive cavity. So that's really ultimately what they were doing. If you're wondering about the food, they would be eating low ferns, small cycads, shrubby angiosperms, which are your flowering plants, and based on its size, its head was about 1 meter off the ground, so it would be eating plants that it could find about 1 meter off the ground. And again, that digestion was happening inside of that really large, extensive gut cavity. So the last thing we can look at on this dinosaur is trying to understand what these osteoderms were for. So these are bones that were embedded into the skin. And when we think about this dinosaur, these were really wide. They're sort of medium sized. They're not super big, but they were very heavy. And so they would move very slowly. And we've seen trackways where we can kind of calculate their speeds. So we know they weren't cruising along super fast. They were spending most of their time focused kind of smelling out vegetation, spending time eating it, and then slowly digesting all of this plant material. So they were very much focused on finding food. These osteoderms would have provided them defense from predators because, again, they would not make it super easy to go and attack this dinosaur. A lot of the ankylosaurs did have fused bony plates at the end of their tail that they could swing like a club. And ultimately, if that didn't work and they were being attacked by a large theropod, they could kind of hunker down and sit with this, these massive bodies. They could sit there and then use that bony plate for protection because it would be very hard to bite through. And they were just so large, they would be hard to flip over. So anyway, that's a quick look at Mymoorapelta maysi, a very cool ankylosaurus fossil, again from Colorado, from the Morrison Formation. So I hope you enjoyed this Fossil in Focus. Until we meet again, I wish you adventure and happy learning.